A lot of stuff building up, sir. What's your take on the world at large and how quickly things are moving?
What it's really making me be is in the observer mode to keep watch on how fast they're basically programming everybody here in the United States and the rest of the world to what they want to get done. And of course, like you said today, they've announced that this is the new world order. Well, Bush has announced that. They've been doing that for a long time. But at this minute, what they're doing now is loaning more money throughout the world. In the problem that they have, the International Monetary Fund, and I happen to have their accounting book, in their International Monetary Fund book itself, the first thing that I want to know what they're talking about, and that is the definition of money, because we have to have some kind of guidelines to go on. Well, they don't have one. They flat out cannot tell you what money's like. And so when they come back today and tell you they've made special arrangements with our banks over here to mark to the market, they're just creating artificial figures out of thin air, and that's what I've been warning about a long time. And that was in the derivative market that is running on the credit card scams across the United States right now, and the rest of the if you want to call it the pure Ponzi game, which is the stock market, which has no bearing on business whatsoever. That's merely people gambling out here, and most people are gambling with their retirement funds, and that's the reason why they've gone down 40 to 60% in the last few months.
I think it's real important, George, that people understand that these measures of, like the Fed buying up $1 trillion of debt from the Treasury, these are desperate moves and scrambles. And there's a looting going on, but it's also a desperate move showing that, this stuff, in this these numbers, you just can't keep doing it forever. There's going to be a point where they just can't do it anymore, and we have hyperinflation. So real briefly, Bill, if we can show those slides of kind of like what we're looking at here. First of all, picture $100. And we have a graphic here of basically what $100 looks like. And a lot of people are out of touch with actually how much a trillion is. Well, we'll show you in just a sec. Now we've got $10,000 after that. A nice little bundle of money. Have a great time in Vegas. It's worth a little bit. Some decadent fun there. Now you got about $100 million after that, just to get you to visualize and see how much this is. Here's $100 million. Now we're going to look at $1 billion. It's B with a boy. That's $1 billion. So when you hear about trillions, well, we're looking at this. Those pellets are double stacked. George, your comments. I mean, big numbers being thrown out here. I think most people just can't comprehend $1 trillion anymore and what that means.
No, and you really can't, because they're really not identifiable. I mean, $1 billion is 10,000 $100,000 homes. So we get an idea how much that is. The trouble is it's all created artificial, that they're using something we call money or dollars, as you mentioned, in order to keep track of the exchange of goods and services. And right now, nobody knows what anything is worth. Everybody is very insecure at this minute. They're no longer spending, and that's what economy is all about. And if you really look at the whole world situation, all of the area throughout the whole world, or the consumer people, are just basically collapsing around every place. Everybody they're laying off, even in India and in China. China just laid off, they closed down 14 of their refineries. Now you have to understand, China's, in population basis, is over 4 times the population of the United States. And yet they're a consumer society, and they're consuming all the goods in the world that they can finally get based on the dollar that we've given them. So we may owe them $1.2 trillion when you're using your numbers. That's the American taxpayer that has to do it, but the American taxpayer is gone. We no longer have a tax base because we don't have people working. And just like the figures that you mentioned a little while ago, the figures of the unemployment are only those people that are working, that are not working, but are drawing unemployment benefits. After the benefits are used up, they're no longer on the rolls.
Exactly.
So we're really looking.
They say Oregon's like 10.8 unemployment now, but it's probably more like 15 to 20. They're only counting people still on paper as seeking a job or something along those lines. There's a lot of people lose jobs that never go to the unemployment office.
That's exactly correct. And then they also talk to you about the inflation rate, which I figure it's around 14 or 15% too. So when they tell you to go put your money in the bank or treasuries that are yielding 2 or 3%, you're really going in the whole 18%, because you have to be buying goods at a higher price. You just go down to any supermarket and look at the Cheerio boxes, for instance. They're 20% less in size right now, but the price hasn't gone down.
Exactly. It's all getting smaller. Even the hamburger helper little boxes, a lot of people buy. They've gone down about, I would say, 30% in size. I was looking at it walking down the aisle, and everything's gotten smaller. It's the same price, but the ounces, it's reduced by about 30–40% in some cases.
Well, and that's what we're trying to. What you're trying to do, as the rest of us, is trying to get people to start looking at things. But most people are asleep. They don't realize what's happening to them. It's the old story: taking the frog and put it in a cold jar, and then heating up the jar. The frog will stay in there until it starts boiling, and then by that time they're dead. Well, we know the Global 2000 agenda right now is to get a war started. I mean, I said it's called the Plan 2000, and the number one problem, as Kissinger says, is we have too many people on the planet. And most people will recognize that there's about 6.8 billion, increasing over 200,000 a day. And there's not enough resources in the world to take care of it. Forget the carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide molecule. That has nothing to do with it. And our plants absorb carbon dioxide. They want it so they can give out oxygen. It's all the other pollutants and radiation that we're putting in the air that's causing all the problems with the Earth. Weather changes, the commotions are doing with ELF, and everything is affecting all of the planet. We're doing it to ourselves at this minute. We're also reaching a point in the universe where we're going to have major changes, and this is more earthquakes and more volcanoes, like the one that just went off in Alaska. This is going to be escalating over the next 24 or 36 months, so they're going to be going everywhere, so everybody's going to be in chaos. And the only thing they're going to do is go to their local leader, if they can find it, and then they're going to have to register, because there's going to be some kind of emergency Obama's going to have to do. And then you'll go to your post office and register, and under the FEMA rules, or Federal Emergency Management Agency, you'll basically be taken to one of those prisoner of war camps that you're talking about, FEMA camp. They asked me to actually build one, and it says enemy prisoner of war camp. That's what the contract said. I don't know who the enemy is, Alex.
I want to mention briefly some of the stuff that we're seeing on Fox. I mentioned Glenn Beck, but then there's Hannity, and we all know about his experience as a propaganda minister for the government. Well, in a very recent Fox segment, former Clintonite Dick Morris tells Sean Hannity that the globalists will put the American economy under international regulation, and those people who have been yelling, oh, the UN is going to take over, they've been crazy, but now they're right. Those conspiracy people, Sean Hannity interjects, and I really should have brought this video, had suggested that for years, those conspiracy people, you're not wrong, he concludes. And Dick continued on, it's the international regulation of financial institutions we have to worry about. It will happen under IMF control. Remember, the IMF is run by the Europeans and backed by the Americans. So, George, we all agree with that statement to a certain degree, but what is your take on why Fox is trying to paint itself as a provider of information about the New World Order?
Well, you've got to put some information or put the truth out there in certain places so people will go to what they want to. It's like CNN for a long time was giving out good information. The networks are all closing down. You're aware of that, ABC. They take away the free speech rate. There are certain bills that they're trying to get at all the talk radio programs, i.e. ones that give alternative views like yourself, getting rid of the free speech amendment, and basically have it organized. Now, the New World Order, as you and I both know, is a socialist dictatorship, which is going to be controlled by others outside of it. Now we're talking about, and they're telling everybody about the IMF, and believe it or not, just call the United Nations and ask them for the accounting book. It's called Systems of National Accounting. And it's the accounting book for the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And you'll see exactly how they got control. How does most people even aware that the Federal Reserve, and I'm finding this even at the local banks, haven't got a clue that it's it's a corporation controlled by other people, and the monopoly game, they control of the money, it's all in the inner circle right now, and we're getting ready to collapse the whole United States, period, economically, so we can begin a war. We got to have what I call a diversion of all these things. The money is one thing. People are running in the streets is another. But if we can get everybody against some kind of a war going, so I watched the Middle East, because that's their biblical prophecy. They got to get a war started in Israel or thereabouts, so all of the rest of the people can follow in line, and that'll begin World War III as part of their population reduction. Out of that, you'll end up with the one world order, one world bank, and one, they're going to be saved. IGA, we'll give you an insurance policy. I'll give you an insurance policy on your health. Nobody wants to take responsibility for anything, Alex.
So you're looking at a stage war as well. It's going to usher in this new world order, correct, involving China, Russia, and the United States, and perhaps other countries?
Exactly. This is all beginning. What do you think China did today? China just got to saying that they're going to issue a new exchange fund over there because they want to get paid in their currency,
right.
And they don't want the dollar anymore either. So, but
right.
They're willing to work out a three-car party or a three-way party on this thing. I have some friends here in the United States that import from China, like most people do, but now they have to pay them in anything besides the dollar. So they either have to buy the Canadian dollars and try to get an American cannot go to Canada to open up a bank account now. Did you know that?
I have.
Just to give you an idea.
Yeah. It's insane.
And in Panama right now, which is another location where a lot of people have gone money down there, my friends, they're in a banking deal now. Homeland Security isn't going over every account right now. You can't wire $5,000 back to the United States because they'll sit down and say, where did you get it from? Prove it, and you're going to be a terrorist or a druggie. So you're just basically locking your money up in some of the foreign accounts.
Yeah.
Right now, the best thing you can do is get gold and silver and get physical possession. Don't buy anything on the market that's manipulated, because the whole stock market's manipulated. You want, first of all, North Korea, as we know, has 5 nuclear warheads right now. This is just get everybody all wound up. The chairman of China told, our leaders over here, you don't know how many nuclear bombs we have. Today they're talking about, 2,000 and 1,000 that the Russians have. Russians have 20,000 nuclear warheads. We have about 10,000. I mean, you can look it up on the internet. It is there. So when they talk about these small figures, that is their goal that they were going to have that was set up by the last treaty that they had. But then when we started attacking Iraq, and Iraq was all their nuclear stuff was all being Russian. Iran is all Russian right now with their nuclear stuff, and the Russians have pulled all their nuclear scientists out of southern Iran right now because they have all the nuclear reactors and things there, because they can see what's coming up, getting a nuclear war started. Syria has the nuclear bombs. They're all over the place. And who's their enemy right now is Israel, which is basically an interesting situation because they want to follow the biblical prophecies to get this thing going. And Israel, I'm telling anybody, if you see a nuclear bomb hit Israel in the next few months, and I think it could happen, that's going to begin World War III. Because by the nature of everything, if we hit Israel, that's automatically a declaration of war against the United States, and we'll respond in kind. Is that what they're going after Iran, which in turn brings in Russia, and Russia has nuclear submarines on both coasts of the United States and floating platforms, they call them cosmospheres, over the United States, prepared for all this thing for the population reduction program, which they've already put up a monument for it, Alex. This is down in Georgia. It's called the Georgia Guidestones. They're only expecting 20 million Americans to be left alive on this debacle. Now, as you're watching the money play, that's just to get everybody confused. They don't really care. They got the New World Cash Card. They got the chips ready. I do have some good news for people. If you don't want to have their satellites or anything else look in your house, go out and buy some lead paint and paint it on the walls on the inside. And you can get lead paint. They use it on the bottom of boats. And it's not poisonous. Forget the malarkey they told us before. But you can't, the radiation and everything else will be protected by the lead paint. Think about that.
All right, George, I want to ask you something else about all this stuff. Now, we're talking about the New World Order, and you mentioned Iran. Ahmadinejad has mentioned that we need a New World Order as well. I wonder why. Are they jockeying for position of those that could benefit from the new emerging order that's building up more steam in the East, or are they all just working together saying the same thing, New World Order, New World Order, New World Order, New World Order? Your take on why Iran says New World Order, like three articles I found calling for it.
Well, here's the problem. If I travel around the world, and if you can get yourself an airplane and fly over to Iran right now and go into the supermarkets, they're just like ours. They're loaded with product, even the Cheerios and the rest of the stuff that you have. So that the play that we're being given that these are bad guys up there doing it, they really don't care. When they recognize, because they were taking oil out of the ground and they're running that critical area, there's not enough oil, they want to have energy. So what they have done is set up in a process to reprocess. This is what they want to do, reprocess the nuclear waste. The United States doesn't do that. France does, Russia does, and Iran wants to do that. That was the basis of their reactors that the Russians already put in there. So what we're looking at, they know that they're going to be siding with Russia, and rest assured, it's the old Communist Manifesto which says, feign weakness as we go strong. Mm-hmm. And rest assured, they're there. The Russian space program is a lot higher than ours, or farther ahead than ours. I know their nuclear program's about 10 years ahead of us. They have more billionaires in Moscow than any other city in the world. And that's based with, the information from Forbes magazine. So the money games and everything else that's playing on, what the propaganda they get down here, just look at things and don't believe it or research everything yourself. The bad thing that they have going right now, the Internet, can give you all kinds of information and you can sort it through, get with other people to support each other, get your own food stored up right now. I'm recommending that pretty heavily. Water, if you can, get away from major cities, because things are going to be really drastically going in the next few months.
All right, I want to get you to elaborate on that. We're briefly going to show, Christy, let's actually do track 2 instead. We're seeing more protests around the world, and looking back the last couple of years, we see a lot of weird situations happen where we see protests turn violent, where we see a small segment start up the violence, and it looks like this is a ploy by the part of intelligence agencies working in cohorts with the police in some cases to plant agent provocateurs to start something violent so they can crack down on all the peaceful protesters and make it look like it's necessary. So we're going to show you track 2 from this particular DVD, and all this is from yesterday. And then we'll come back and talk more to George. But you're going to see what I'm talking about here in this video. Go ahead and roll it, and I'm going to kind of narrate over it. If this is track 2, then perhaps I'm at track 5. Try track 5. That was it. That's it. Right there. Okay, I want you guys to look at the guy in the middle of the screen.
I'm still here if you can hear me.
Yeah, we're just watching this at the very meeting point between one line of police and the protesters. There was a great surge from the back, but this seems to be the ringleader at the moment. Very
See how none of the cops even touch the guy. They don't even touch him. He's right in their face. He's kicking. He's screaming. And you see this guy. Oh, here comes a guy with the stick. He emerges. Something very suspicious about some of the stuff we're seeing at protests. And then after things like this, you end up seeing people get their ass beat.
The line that they're trying to create is being threatened in any way.
There's another protester has emerged with a very long pole of some description. There goes a smoke bomb.
Now look here, he grabs him. He grabs him. And he easily gets away though and slips back into the crowd right after this. Like a ninja. Yeah, he was just quick. Yeah.
Police officers
and they're just standing there.
A police officer has just been struck very forcibly by that protester. He's more than a protester with that long pole, and we can see the officer being taken aside.
A cop gets assaulted, but the guy gets away. But they end up going after the girls and the ladies, and you see plenty of them getting hit upside the head with a shield. So George, it seems like they just want an angry population. We've got violence all over the TV set. We've got World Wrestling. We've got all this stuff. But do you think people are actually intelligently prepared to create real change, or do you think they're just trying to whip up an angry mob so they can have the pretext to just drop the baton on the head?
Well, the problem is that those things that you're showing right now are happening all over the globe. And you can go isolated to one of them saying that's only happening there, but they don't tell you about the stuff that's happening in all over the continent of Africa. They're happening even in Australia, in the cities, Latin America, that go to Venezuela, all these different places of all kinds of riots that are not only just happening against the current regimes that are involved into it, but people are starving to death all over the world, and they're starting to get ready to get organized, and that's the reason why they got to get this war started again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think it's all agent provocateur use, by the way. I just think there might be some elements there going on in some of these protests, but certainly we're looking at a lot more on the table coming up, as you said, by this summer. And so we're going to see more rioting. So what do you think is going to be transpiring in the next couple months? I know a lot of people are talking about the next couple months being highly significant in ways that most people have no comprehension.
Well, I happen to have one of my friends as a state representative, and he said within 6 months you will not recognize the dollar. That's telling me that what they're doing right now, because the rest of the world's not going along with just borrowing debt or creating things, and laying off, people are being laid off all around the planet, Alex. So it isn't a question of just the United States. We just happen to be a focal point because we've exported all our jobs. Even IBM is just telling people they're laying off 5,000 more people and going off to India, to acquire them. So we can no longer keep the system going that we have, and that's another one of the reasons why we're going to be looking at all this total chaos. And what can I tell you? Go to my website, nohoax.com, and read the special message for you. And if that happens to, register with you, then you'll get more information from our website. And that's nohoax.com, Nohoax.